Next thing I know, I get a call from the cop down in Baltimore, and he says, "We got papers for you to sign. You got to come down to Baltimore." I'm like, "What do you mean papers? This is how they get you." I'm like, "What do you mean papers?" I'm like, "I'm not driving to Baltimore to sign a paper. Email it to me." And it was like, "No, you need to come down here." Finally, he admits, "We've got a warrant for your arrest." It was two girls and a boy. They had been at the same club, and of course, everybody's been drinking, and you know how that goes. And here it is, 2-something in the morning, and they start arguing with one another. Well, what do? Pulled out my cell phone. What do you do? Now, that, to anybody understands, that's a First Amendment protected right? It's just like speaking. You're allowed to take video, and it doesn't mean anything. Well, this fight ensues. Couple fists thrown here and there. It's a little scuffle. It's like 2 minutes long, and then everybody gets up and goes on their own way. I wasn't even in the fight. I had nothing to do with it. You can hear me on my own camera sitting there saying that the girl says, "I don't want to get involved." And I said, "Neither do I. I don't have time for that nonsense. I'm too old for that," right? Well, little did we know that the people in the other side of the fight, the two girls and the guy, they all had family who were cops, Baltimore cops. Kind of know how Baltimore goes. So next thing I know, I've got cops showing up at my house, seizing the vehicle as evidence in a crime. And I'm like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. I would have given you the car or whatever. And a couple months goes by, and I was actually at Wing Bowl, standing there with Ron Jeremy, of all people. And I got a call from my wife. The police are at our house, raiding our house. And I'm like, what the hell? So I race home, and the Baltimore cops had come over and got the Pennsylvania State Police, and they took all our stuff, all my electronics. So they basically shut my business down right there on the stop. I mean, a lot of people on the right are now having this, like where feds are showing up and destroying our lives. Well, they did. And I thought to myself, okay, I mean, like, guys, I would have helped you. I mean, all I was a witness. No, see, the family being cops meant that they went after me. Next thing I know, I get a call from the cop down in Baltimore, and he says, we got papers for you to sign. You got to come down to Baltimore. I'm like, what do you mean papers? This is how they get you. I'm like, what do you mean papers? I'm like, I'm not driving to Baltimore to sign a paper. Email it to me. And it was like, no, you need to come down here. Finally, he admits, we've got a warrant for your arrest. I'm like, what? So we go through this whole, crazy rigmarole, because I'm like, I can't leave right that fast, because I mean, my entire life's going to get blown up. And I said to him, I said, look, I'm not coming to Baltimore unless you tell me what the charges are. You know what the charges were? Now, remember, I took a cell phone video. Wasn't involved in the fight. No one was seriously hurt. Nobody even went to the hospital that night, right? Conspiracy to commit first-degree attempted murder. They tacked on all sorts of felony assault charges. I mean, they brought a war at me. I mean, it was 2 life sentences and 275 years I was looking at for taking a cell phone video, which is protected. Sounds like the government weaponized, right? Well, I got a taste of it very, very early on. And my First Amendment, was trampled on. So a couple of days later, I surrendered myself, and BCDC, if anybody knows anything about BCDC, which is Baltimore City Detention Center, it was rated the second worst jail in the nation. I mean, it was horrible. Like, there was a scandal in there where like 5 or 10 of the female police officers were pregnant by the same inmate. I mean, it was just insane stuff that was going on in that place. I could buy a gun in jail. Not even kidding you. And here I am. I'm privately school educated. Never had, anything happen in my entire life. And I've gone straight to attempted murder. And I'm in like hardcore jail, right? It's funny. They used to call me J Money in jail, right? And the funny thing is, the way I survived in that jail is because I was educated, and because, I sort of understood what was going on. I acted as the liaison between their attorney, because most of them couldn't read. So I was actually helping them figure out these legal issues, which, to get them out. So, of course, all the gang members that wanted to get out, they didn't let anybody touch me, right? So I spent like 2 months in jail, finally get a bail. Like, they denied me bail because I was in jail, and then I got a bail hearing because one of the other guys had finally gotten out that was actually in the fight, and I got out on bail, which changed the entire dynamic. I would have taken a charge in jail. I was terrified. Like, I legitimately, I watched people get stabbed. I watched a guy had his head beat against a toilet. Like, it was horrible in there, like as bad as it gets. But as soon as I got out, I realized I could take a stance against this thing, and it put me on this path to like take down corrupt cops and corrupt government and fight for free speech. I mean, it changed who I was. You know.
So why did they charge you with attempted murder for filming?
Because they were family members of the cops. It's malicious prosecution that they just used.
So the people
system.
in the video.
But I mean,
were
what
family
beef
members
do
of
they
the
have
cops?
with you? What?
Yeah.
You're just some guy who filmed. They'd be like,
Yep.
Who are you? We don't care.
Because they were family members of cops, they said that I was a kingpin. I mean, imagine yourself, right? As high profile as you are. Imagine you take out a cell phone video. It's not because you do anything wrong. It's just because of who you are. They're going to go after you.
I don't know. And something doesn't seem to make. I don't understand the motive.
Well, if you think about it, the two girls and the guy, the other side of this fight, their family members are cops, Baltimore cops. Those cops were involved in the what do you call it? The deposition thing that they take, and we noticed their names are like, whoa. So what they did was they basically said, go after them. They did it like I was a kingpin. Like I set this up like a bum fight.
But what do you think their motive is? What are they trying to gain from this?
Just smash me, I guess. I don't know.
But just they're bored, so they're going after some random guy who happened to be nearby?
Well, no, because I was taking them home. So I was there with them.
With the people who were in the fight?
With the people that were in the fight, but they wanted to take them all down for murder, which was insane.
Nobody murdered. Nobody was murdered.
Nobody was, like, the worst injury that was actually listed was a, quote, possible broken nose. Possible.
So they're saying
no
anybody who was there in that group, they're going to go after?
Correct. Correct. And they took me for something that is constitutionally protected.
Which is just filming what happened in public.
Correct. Yeah. I had no involvement, but you get blamed for things that are just ridiculous because people get a vendetta, and we're seeing that these days, that they're weaponizing the whole government, everything, the cops, it's getting crazy, and a lot of people, they sit at home and they don't think about this, and they go, because they're not affected until they come for you. Then what? And that's just it. Is somebody's got to fight back, because if we don't, we're going to get, like, there's so many of us now that have basically poked the beehive, so to speak,
and like gotten in trouble just for social media stuff.
Yeah. And they're going to come. I mean, if they get too much power, they're going to come for us. That's how it's going to go down. So it is a do or die fight at this point. It's obviously progressed from, what happened in Baltimore. That's just started me on the road. It's just changed who I was. But then, I started growing in social media to tell this whole story, to tell this whole what happened to me, because it was so wrong. Like, why am I going to jail? I mean, worst case, maybe an accessory to a misdemeanor assault, which is really not even a charge. But
is it still ongoing?
No. In fact, actually, what happened about 8 or 9 months later, I finally get to court, first court hearing. The one guy has pled out. He pled to a misdemeanor, right? I can't even be an accessory to a misdemeanor. It has to be a felony. The other guy was still dealing with it, but he goes in. His attorneys were there. My attorneys couldn't be there because they were in a capital murder trial. And so I was just going to get continuous because my counsel couldn't be there. But I had to be there. So I show up, and the other guy's attorneys stand up there, and they're doing their thing and so forth. And then the judge says, Mr. Fick. And I stand up, and I'm like, I'm here. He said, it was a woman. She goes, Mr. Fick. She turns to the prosecutors, and he says, okay, so what did he do wrong? That sticks in my head to this day. You got a judge literally looking at this going, so what did he do wrong? She knew it. She knew it was a First Amendment protected activity. And I stood there, and she turned, and then she brought him up to the podium and so forth. And the other one said, my attorney's not there. And they said, you're going to null process. I could hear her. You're going to null process this, right? Which means to drop it. And the prosecutors, because it actually was a state prosecutor, they had gone up. They wasn't even the city anymore. I don't know. I mean, they threw everything at us, and right there on the spot, they dropped it with a court apology.
The procedure is the punishment.
Yeah, you lose no matter what.
Well, you got 2 months in jail.
I had 2 months in jail.
That's a lot of time in jail for not doing anything.
$60,000 in lawyers' fees, which you don't recover. So, I, of course, tried to sue because of malicious prosecution, but see, they've insulated it there too. Right. Because you go to law firm, the Murphy firm is the biggest one that goes after the city, and they basically said, if anything has probable cause, anything, like if you get jaywalking and they add on attempted murder, they can do that. Because if the jaywalking has probable cause, everything else gets dumped.
If you were black, you'd have made $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, Black Lives Matter would have rallied in 2 seconds.
False
You'd have got
imprisonment.
Ben Crump would have come out and said, "Here's the video of what he did. Why is this happening?" But here we are.
It's a shame because the racism thing, it exists in a way, but it's not the way that everybody expects. And you're right in that. I'll tell you a funny story with that. With my bail hearing, here I am in a freaking jumpsuit. I am the only white guy in the room, except for the prosecutor and judge and everybody else. But all of these people were chained all around me, probably 30 plus, all black. And they get to my case and the judge says, "Oh, I remember this case." What do you mean you remember this case? And next thing I know, I get denied bail. I have surrendered myself. I have no criminal history. I got nothing going on that's wrong. And I got denied bail. The next guy that stood up, black guy, right? He was there on his 8th felony assault. He hit a guy in the head with a baseball bat, and he got a $250,000 bail.
So
I'm a bigger threat.
You got no bail, and the judge said they remembered the case without you ever having stood before the judge before.
You got it.